welcome to this week's instalment of critique and Lightroom tips on your photos. So this week we've got what looks to be 4 pictures in Dropbox. So I'm not going to bother with the timer on this one because I don't think it's going to take that long. So we probably go over or under a little bit. So this first one, it's a nice black and white conversion of a castle. So let's just press Ctrl Alt and 2, and this takes us to the develop module. Nice handy shortcut there. Ctrl Alt and 1 takes you to the library, Ctrl Alt 2 to develop, and well, as you work along, Alt 3 is map, Ctrl Alt 4 book, slideshow, print and web. So they're really handy shortcuts, especially if you're using a touchpad on a laptop or something like that. Anyway, so this shot, first impressions, yeah, looks like a good candidate for a black and white conversion. Really like all these weird shapes. Are they chimneys or something like that? Or maybe where you used to rest your bow and arrow and things like that. So first impressions are good on the conversion side, but compositionally it's too low in the frame, isn't it? If you look, we're missing all the bottoms of the walls and things like that. I mean, that little gate's missing there. I mean, I don't know, there might be a reason for it being missing. I wasn't there on the actual shoot. So it's a bit too low. So if you'd have just tilted your camera down, maybe so this turret, I suppose they call them, was a bit more up here, that sort of position there, this would be a much more dominant feature, because when you look at the shot, it's, remember, your eyes drawn to this bit first, and what's there, it's just clouds. I mean, they're nice clouds, but you're not really seeing that. So I mean, well, let's just see what happens when I do a crop. So let's crop it down so the turrets are on the third. You can hopefully see that line there, and okay, let's just do that. Now when you look at the shot, what you're seeing, it's not so much the sky now. In fact, I think because we've gone quite panoramic, I'm just going to lose this bit of wall here. Yeah, let's lose that. Like that. So now it's much more about the castle, isn't it, than the sky. I mean, the sky is good, and the sky should complement the shot, not be the shot. There we go. Even more now. And now we've cropped in so much, it's probably not enough balance, not enough stuff on the right hand side to balance the busy side over there. So I'm going to bring it to maybe there. Being careful to put the crop between these two things there. Okay, let's try that. So you see, we've now got a nice picture of a castle, and if you want to make it more of the castle and less of the sky, we can add a vignette. I always do this, but it's just my thing at the moment. I'll probably grow out of it sooner or later. There we go. There you go. And I think the exposure is pretty good, by the way, whoever's done this. I mean, if you look at the histogram, it's pretty much covers all bases there. Okay, so yeah, if we go back to the original, is it going to let us do that? No. Typical. Well, this is a way to do it. If you want to see the proper original, you go create virtual copy, and then Ctrl Shift R resets it. So you can see now it's a picture of a sky with a castle at the foot, and then once we've edited it a little bit, just recropping the same shot, it's a picture of a castle with a nice sky above it. Okay, so next one, Leeds Liverpool Canal, I bet, coming from Leeds. So we've got a nice lead line coming in from, everything's what we call a crash point. So you've got this line leading down, this line here leading down to this sort of point here, which is where probably the main feature is this chimney. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. One of those typical Leeds days where, well, if we zoom in on this, bugger all, nothing in the sky. So it's one of those where maybe get out a longer lens and, you know, avoid getting the sky in as much as you can. So I mean, if you bring it down to here, see, I'm leaving this on the third line like that. We've got the person there, actually. That's quite nice. Little blurred person running. Keep that person in. Let's see what that looks like, just with less sky. So it does look a little bit high now, doesn't it, that in the frame, the actual focal point. Well, it feels like it should be a bit further down. Ooh. Yeah, so we've got a bit of over sharpening going on here as well. Look, see this pattern? That'll be caused probably by Lightroom sharpening. So when you're doing your sharpening, if you have let's see if we can make it worse to illustrate it. So let's put the sharpening on quite a bit. Now if you add a lot of detail, look what happens. It really it creates these weird patterns. If you take the detail off, it's a lot better. It just sharpens the edges of things, which is what I prefer. Okay, but you've already sharpened it, so I'm going to switch that off, back to where we were, and then you can just, to try and null this noise, you can grain, you can just use a bit of noise reduction, just because there's no colour there. You don't want to use a colour, just use the luminance. Okay, so has that worked? Let's try. Let's just get the crop tool back up again. So I'm thinking it naturally wants to be that, you know, the vanishing point wants to be on this line here, really. Let's try that. So that's pretty cool. Right, let's just see what a vignette does to that sky. It'll make it look a bit more. It's adding something to the sky, isn't it? It's not ideal. Nice clouds would have been better, but you can't always book the weather, can you? Let's just throw a bit of clarity at it. That'll up the contrast, but be careful with clarity. If we look at these trees now, if you look at the edges of them, I bet they've got little halos on. See where it's gone a bit lighter. Switch the clarity down. That disappears. Go up. See, you can see what I mean, these little glows around things, so be really careful with that because it looks terrible on the print. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those shots. Oh, there's a bit of a dust spot there as well. Just be careful on those. You can just quickly get rid of them with this clone tool. There you go. So they're just quick and easily to get rid of those. I don't mind these bits of fluff and stuff floating down canals because that's real, but just dust bunnies always try and get rid of them. Yeah, I think that sort of improves it. Let's maybe just add in a little bit more white. We've got lots of black already if you look at the histogram. We're just adding a bit of white just to give it the full dynamic range. So yeah, I think that's about as far as I could go with that one. So the next one's lock fine, just because it says it. Right, so oh, I think we might have had something from up here last time actually. Let's have a look. So I think, yeah, first thing, look at the histogram. You're missing the top half of the tonal palette. So you could maybe add a lot of life to it. Whoever's shot this is, just go through. I'm sure the Mac's got it, and Windows certainly has a calibration routine. Because I've seen over the last few weeks quite a lot of these photos where the brightness is really low on a calibrated monitor. It's not very bright at all. What that tells me is you've probably got a monitor which is way too bright. So when you're looking at it on the screen, these pictures will look really good. But when you look at it on another screen, or even worse, on a print, it's going to look really dark. So that's why we have calibration devices actually. It's quite a shock the first time you see it, because most monitors tend to be too bright and too warm. So when you calibrate it, everything all of a sudden goes dark and cold looking. Anyway, so are we level? Let's just get our little angle tool up and start maybe over this end of the lake. And just give it a little try. I don't think we're far out. Yeah, I just saw it had a little bit of play there. It's one of those shots where you're thinking, could you have gone somewhere just a little bit more interesting? Because you've got this tree blocking it, which isn't helping. It's not like introducing, it's not a lead line or anything like that. You've got an old bath and fence in the foreground. I do like this yellow of the gorse. That looks pretty cool. You've got a nice village there. So I'm just wondering if you could have walked left or right to get away from the tree and maybe past this fence. It's just one of those where these are obstructing the shot rather than helping the shot. Yeah, so I've brightened it up quite a lot there, and what you'll find when I zoom in over here is it creates a lot of colour noise. If you look at the noise here, that's colour noise as well as, oopsie daisy. So let's get out of the noise reduction thing. Just add a little bit of colour noise. See, all that colour speckles just disappeared, leaving us with the luminance. So that softens it off nicely. Maybe a bit too far there because it's lost all the details. So if we take it off, yeah, there we go. It's still quite noisy down here, isn't it? So what I may do, because that's in the dark area, I'm going to bring the shadows down a little bit, and maybe the blacks down a little bit, just to see that noise isn't jumping out as so much. It's darkened it a little bit too much down the bottom. So no, I'm not doing this any favours actually. I think the main thing to take away from this is when you're shooting, try and get the exposure right. You know, when I say right, if you're shooting digital, as long as it's not blowing off the right hand side and you're losing lots of detail, and it's not really underexposed and everything's down at the left hand side, that's a sort of I mean, this scene's gonna be a U shape anyway, with the dark of these blacks and the white sky. So long as you're not falling off either end, get that right. Then when you edit it, keep an eye on your histogram. Up the whites in Lightroom, because if you're editing a raw file, you can do a lot more than you can do with this JPEG I'm playing with now. Up it so something's white or approaching white in the sea. This sky here, you know, it's not. Is it blowing? Oh, just that little bit of water. You can see it's gone red. When you click on this, it shows you what's blown out. I mean, if we go further up with the whites, you see the sky blows out and everything. There you go. Just gives it more vibrance. Okay, so I think we have one more shot today. Or was that the last one? Ah, nice night shot of a viaduct. It's not focused on anything, unfortunately. If you zoom in, this is a critical thing with any night photography, really. If you're going to shoot at night, you've got to focus on something, and it looks what way you could zoom in with your live view, if you use live view, onto these edges, maybe there. If you zoomed in onto that, so there's this little distinct edge between the dark and the light, and the live view, or even just normal focusing, should be able to pick up on that edge. If not, you've got these spots here it should pick up on. Once you've got it sharp, switch your autofocus off, do a few shots, check after each one, check by zooming into 100%. If you don't do that, you might knock your autofocus by accident. It happens, you know, if you're moving your camera around a little bit, and every shot will be blurred. But I think for this, looks very noisy as well actually. Yeah, if you look up here, because it's so noisy, and blurred, you see these edges aren't really defined. Okay. But I mean, it's definitely a scene to go back to. I don't know where this is. I'd quite like to know myself, because I love these blue tones in here. But get yourself back down there one night. Try what I've said about the way of getting the focus right. And well, let's just have a very quick play. See what happens when you add a bit of clarity and saturation. Everything goes very blue indeed. So let's make the blacks go black. Maybe bring a bit out in the shadows. Whites. Ooh, if you go too far, everything starts to look a bit cyber. Okay. So I brought the highlights down there. So the highlights are controlling these bits here. I'm hoping that by darkening the dark bits down, we get rid of some of the noise. Or it just disguises it anyway. But I've added some noise reduction on there. Let's have a look at this sky. Let's just double check. Yeah, that's better, isn't it? It's better. It will start to smooth edges out. It's just the way noise reduction works. Okay. Zoom back out. What else can we do? Let's have a bit of a vignette as well, just to darken this sky and bring your eye down. In fact, I think it's just leaning a bit, isn't it, as well? So if we grab all of that, the little grid comes up. Are we a bit closer there? And I'm not too keen on having half that arch there, so I'm going to bring this arch in a little bit. We can maybe put this right on the top there, so it's coming out of the corner. There we go. Right, okay on that, and then let's just add a vignette. It's all running in slow-mo at the minute, I think. There you go. I mean, you could even, because this area at the top's quite dark now, you could just bring this down quite a way. There we go. Try that. Cutting to the chase a little bit more, isn't it? There you go. So I think this is definitely a place to revisit. Get your sharpening, your focus right, and just enjoy a nice evening down there. And email me where it is with the Google Maps, and I'll go and have a play as well. Excellent. Right. Well, I think that's it for today's session. So just a little recap on them. I think for this first one, remember the key feature is the castle in this one. So make more of it. You know, I mean, I did a bit of serious cropping there to illustrate the point, but you know, the castle is much more prevalent when you do it like that. With this one, suffering from a bit of a dull sky, and there wasn't really a lot going on generally. Maybe wait for the runner to get a bit further in, but I think the runner does add to it quite a bit. Okay. With this one, I think it was stood in the wrong spot, and when it was delivered to Dropbox, the levels were way too low. So have a look at calibrating your monitor. You don't need to get a Spider calibration device if you can't afford it, but I'd recommend a Spider, ColorVision Spider, SPYDER. But if not, just go into Google and type, you know, monitor calibration or something like that, because you get little bits of software that take you through steps, and that way you'll adjust your monitor so it's about the right brightness. And the last one is just not focused, but loads of potential as a location. Just get your focusing right. Excellent. Thanks a lot, and catch you next week.